Welcome to Module 2. This is Lesson 2.1, Few-Shot Prompting. I'm Dr. Song. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to teach Claude a specific format, tone, or classification scheme using 2 or 3 worked examples, turning a prompt that describes what you want into one that shows it. That outcome matters because describing the output in English is leakier than you think. You say professional tone. Claude picks a tone that's probably close but not yours. You say classify by priority. Claude picks a priority scheme that may not match the one your team actually uses. Every English word in your instructions is a guess Claude has to interpret. Examples aren't guesses. Examples are the finished product. Before I teach the pattern, a quick story, because I learned Few-Shot the hard way. When I was evaluating AI responses for a major AI firm in the finance domain, one of the recurring failure modes was category labels. The model would classify a customer email, or a transaction, or an alert, and the labels it produced looked right. Billing dispute, account issue, fraud review. Read them cold, and they sound like the right categories. The problem was, those weren't the categories the finance team actually used. The team had their own taxonomy, maybe chargeback, dispute under review, pending adjustment. 3 labels that looked similar to the models, but routed to completely different workflows downstream. I spent a week trying to fix that with longer and longer instructions. Classify into exactly these 6 categories. Do not use any other labels. Here are the definitions. Pages of prose. It kept drifting. What actually worked, and worked in about 10 minutes, was showing Claude 3 real examples from the team's actual data, labeled the way the team labeled them. 3 examples did what 3 pages of rules couldn't. That's the pattern we're going to learn today, and it's the lowest effort accuracy move in the whole toolkit. Here is the frame. A Few-Shot prompt has 4 parts. Instruction: 1 or 2 sentences telling Claude what you want. Keep this short. You're about to show Claude what you mean. Examples: 2 or 3 worked examples. Each one pairs an input with the exact output you want. Same format every time. Same labels every time. Same level of detail every time. Your input: the new item, the email, the transaction, the customer review that Claude has not seen. The arrow: literally, an arrow or a label or a category at the end telling Claude where to write its answer. This one typographic cue is surprisingly important. It tells Claude, the examples are finished. Your turn now. 4 parts. Instruction, 2 or 3 examples. Your input, the arrow. The whole pattern fits on a single screen. Let's build one. I'm going to start with the version a lot of people type first, the version without examples. We're going to classify incoming emails into 5 categories: sales lead, support, billing, partnership, and spam. Claude returns sales lead, and it's right. For this email, zero-shot works. The email is clear, the categories are standard English, and Claude's training data has seen 1,000 emails like this one. But watch what happens when the email is less obvious. Is that right? Maybe. Or maybe this belongs in a follow-up bucket, or a deal at risk bucket, or a support bucket because it mentions SLA. The category Claude picked is the one English suggests. It may not be the category your team's workflow expects. And you'd never catch that without opening every email yourself, which defeats the purpose. Now, let's do it with FeelShot. I'm going to show Claude one or two real examples per category before I hand it anything new. And I'm going to write each example the way my team actually labels them, including the nuance I want preserved. Stop for a second. Look at what's in that prompt. 6 examples, 5 categories, and 1 instruction line in the middle. The one that says if an email mentions an existing contract and raises a commercial concern, it is still sales lead, not support. That one line exists because I included the SLA example right below it. The example is what locks in the rule. The sentence alone wasn't enough when I tried it in my earlier work. The example made it stick. Now let me run the same 2 test emails from a minute ago against this FeelShot version. Sales lead, same as before. Sales lead, same answer as before, but this time I know why it's sales lead. The rule baked into my example said it would be. The next person on my team who gets this output gets the same answer I would have given. That's the payoff of FeelShot. One more test email. This one's harder. Before I ask Claude, I want you to classify this one yourself. Read it. Is this a sales lead because they want a 10-seat trial? Is it partnership because they are proposing a co-sell? Or is it both? And if it is, which label does your team route on? Pause the video. Pick a label. Then come back. Welcome back. Whatever you picked, hold that in your head. Claude went partnership. That's a defensible answer. The email's primary intent is a co-sell. But notice what I didn't teach Claude in my examples. I never showed Claude an email that mentions both a partnership motion and a seat request. That gap is now visible because the borderline case landed on it. If my team's actual policy is to route this to a sales lead first and loop partnerships in second, I have one fix and it's a cheap one. I add a 7th example, the hybrid case labeled sales lead. And the next time a hybrid comes in, Claude routes it the way my team does. That brings us to the question I get most often about FeelShot. How many examples is enough? The honest answer is, it's a calibration loop, not a number. Here's how I actually run it. Start with 2 examples per category. That's your minimum. Run 5 realistic inputs, and this is important, include at least one that lives on the boundary between 2 categories. Look at the outputs. If every easy case is right, and the boundary case is the way your team would have routed it, you're done. 2 per category is enough. If the boundary case is wrong, don't add more rules in prose. Add the boundary case itself as an example, labeled the way you would have labeled it. Then rerun. Most of the time, one added example fixes the category. If you find yourself adding a 5th or a 6th example per category and still missing cases, that's a signal you've outgrown FeelShot and you need a different pattern, usually structured chain of thought, which we'll learn in the next lesson. FeelShot is the lowest effort move in the toolkit, not the only one. 3 mistakes I watch new FeelShot users make. First, too few examples to cover the category space. If you have 5 categories and you only give Claude 2 examples total, the 3 unexampled categories are just plain words. Claude will use them, but you haven't taught them. 2 per category is the working minimum. Second, Examples that don't include the hard cases. If every example is a textbook clean case, Claude learns the textbook. Include at least one example that demonstrates the distinction you actually care about. The SLA clause example is mine. If your team has a nuance that keeps getting missed, an example is how you teach it. Third, forgetting the arrow, email category with a trailing colon or an arrow or a clear label slot. Without it, Claude sometimes explains what the answer would be instead of giving you just the answer. One typographic cue saves 3 follow-up messages. Here's your task for this lesson. It should take about 15 minutes. 1. Pick a classification problem from your own work or studies. Email triage, expense categories, feedback tags, lead temperature, student question types. Real categories from your real domain. 2. Write a few short prompt with 2 examples per category. Include one boundary case example on purpose. 3. Run it on 5 test inputs, 4 straightforward, 1 borderline. Save the prompt, a screenshot of the 5 results, and 1 sentence on whether the borderline case went the way you would have routed it. Post it to the Week 2 discussion board. This is the first piece of your prompt pattern portfolio for this module's graded assignment. Save it somewhere you can find it. Up next, in Lesson 2.2, we are going to handle the tasks that Few-Shot can't fix. Analytical tasks, numerical reasoning, multi-step logic. We'll learn chain of thought, which is the other half of the accuracy story. Examples teach format. Chain of thought teaches reasoning.